in there now, so we'll just get started. So those of you who don't know me, my name's Amy. I'm the Injury Fund Coordinator for the LGFA. I've been working with the fund from around March last year, so just before the pandemic kicked off. Rosemary retired to the sun. So today it's just for the players, so we're just going to go through the Injury Fund, what it does, what it's there to help with, so the benefits that are involved, and then the procedure in place for claiming the benefits from the fund. So first of all, what is the Injury Fund? So the Injury Fund is really here to help LGFA members get reimbursement for some of the expenses that they incur because of injuries they've sustained during an official training session or an official match. So risk of injury is just inherent in every sport we participate in, and it really is something that should be planned for. I appreciate that's not always possible, but especially the extent of the injury, but where it is possible, members should take responsibility for themselves to ensure that they are adequately covered. So we will go, as we're going through the slides, feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section. One of my colleagues, Lynn Savage, is thankfully looking after that for me, so I don't have to do it all in one go. But of course, by all means, if there's any specific queries, or if you have a specific query about your own claim, feel free to email me on amy.call@lgfa.ie. Okay, so as I was saying, injury is a risk that's just inherent in every sport that we participate in, and it is really up to the members to make sure that they know what they're covered for under the fund and to make sure that that's adequate for themselves. Nobody should be fully reliant on our fund or on any fund. It is really up to personal choice what decision they decide to go with regarding injury treatment or who they decide to see for that treatment. There we go. So the Injury Fund is an insurance, and this is something anybody who has heard me speak whenever I was involved with the GA Injury Fund will have heard me say this before. The Injury Fund is an insurance. There's no insurance company looking after it. There's no underwriter providing any funds towards it. So the money that's paid in by members every year is the money that's paid out from the fund. So I'm trying to encourage all clubs and counties as well not to refer to it as insurance whenever you guys are filling in your forms at the start of every year. I've updated the website, so the link is there. So it's fully updated with all the benefits and all the requirements for the fund. So I would really encourage all members to start every year, just have a check of it, make sure that you're aware of what is available to you. So the benefits available under the fund haven't really changed in a number of years. I know my predecessor, Rosemary, would have been really involved with getting these changed over her tenure. So at the moment, they're staying where they are. So the medical expenses is €5,500 per claim. And if you are seeking private treatment, so anything outside of physio, GP, or A&E visits, that must be prior approved. Dental expenses up to a maximum of €3,000 per claim. And then loss of wages is €200 per week for up to 20 weeks. And this is only for adult members. So if you are a juvenile, or if you are considered juvenile, so you're under 18, but you're working a part-time job and you'd like for that to be considered for loss of wages, just make sure that you're paying the €25 adult fee for the injury fund to make sure that you're covered for that loss of wages benefit. So I've broken down the claims process into 3 stages. This is probably the easiest way for everybody to remember them, and so that you know exactly what your next stage is. So the first one is your notification. After that, you're proceeding then for your treatment. So your treatment requires prior approval. And then the last stage then is your payment request. So where you're coming to me with all your documentation and all your receipts, and you're looking for that money to come back to you. So first, I suppose, situation that occurs is you're very unfortunate and you've received an injury. Your injury must have occurred at an official match and official training session. Where you've sustained a serious enough injury that you require urgent medical treatment, that should be sought at your nearest public A&E hospital. If you have private health insurance, but you're looking to go to one of their express care clinics, or I know VHI have their Swift Care clinics, they will be covered for your first attendance at them up to €100, as the same as it would be if it was an A&E visit. So once you have gotten past that stage, so you've had your injury, you've sought your urgent medical treatment, that might be to your GP, it might be to your physio. If you require follow-up treatment after that, especially at a private clinic, that must be prior approved. So you've sustained your injury, you've gotten your first stage of treatment, which is covered without the requirement for prior approval. And then you need to make sure that you get it notified into myself. So notification can be made in two ways. So the first way, and the most standard way, is with the preliminary claim form. So that is available on the website for download. It's a one-page form. It needs to be signed by the claimant, the trainer who is at the training session, the club, and the county. And then it can be forwarded into me. The old way was always that it must be posted in. Now, in 2020, it was brought in that could be emailed in. And that will continue, obviously, with the pandemic. Emailing in is a much more efficient way of getting notification into myself than by post. In a situation where your treatment is all completed within the first 8 weeks, it's under €200 and none of it require prior approval. So say, for instance, if it's just your first 6 physio sessions, it's just an A&E visit, or maybe it's just a GP visit with 1 or 2 physio sessions, that can be notified into me using a full injury claim form, as if it was the end of your claim, because all of your treatment didn't require prior approval and it's just notification payment just all in one go. That will include, there is information on the website as well that will show exactly what that criteria is. But the main point I want to get across is notification must be in within 8 weeks. So be that the injury claim form or the preliminary claim form has to be in my emails within 8 weeks of the date of injury. So once I receive a notification, the next stage then is I will email yourself with whatever email address you have given me on your form. And I will request either your referee's report, if it's a match, or I'll request your attendance record at your training session. So it would be up to yourself then to go back to your club and just say, look, this is what I need. I need either my referee's report or I need my training session attendance record. Now, your attendance record isn't the health questionnaire. I know some clubs were thinking it was, it's not. Particularly at the start of our return to sport after the first lockdown, it was asked that all clubs kept a record of themselves of each training session to make sure that it was easier for themselves to know exactly who was there as well, should something appear further down the line. So that is the attendance record I'm looking for. I'm not looking for people's personal details. I'm just looking to make sure that your name and you were at the training session. So once I send out my email, I'll be requesting that information. I'll also confirm your claim number. And I'll also, if it's a case that your claim is declined, I'll give you a claim number and I'll explain to you why it's being declined. Should it be outside the 8 weeks, or if it's declined because you weren't registered? I will explain that in an email to you, and it will be issued back to you straight away as soon as I get your notification. So these are the details, the criteria I was mentioning there about the injury claim form. If you're submitting that as part of your notification, these are the 3 areas where that would fall under. So all 3 of these must be applicable in order for an injury claim form to be the first form of notification. So all the expenses must be less than €200. The treatment is public and didn't require prior approval, and it was all completed within the 8 weeks, so within that notification timeframe. So at this stage now, your claim's open, you've received your injury claim, your claim number, and you're going ahead with your treatment. So under the fund, 90% of 6 physiotherapy sessions are covered without the requirement of prior approval. It just allows you that chance to go see your physio, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, 3 sessions, just to see how you're getting on, and really to evaluate where you are and where your next stage is. Be that if you need to get further on, referral on for a scan, or you need to get referral on for a consultation, but it just gives you that chance. A&E attendances, as I mentioned before, are covered under the fund without any prior approval request. BHI Swift Care and those AFD Expressway cares, I know the Matter have one, they're all covered up to the maximum of €100, like any A&E visit would be. But then if you have another attendance after that, then that needs to be prior approved. And then any GP visits, because your GP is your first port of call for most things anyway. So yeah, we allow you get the chance to make sure that your urgent care is looked after, that you're not feeling you have to wait to go get treatment, that your first stage is there for. Once it goes outside of that, you really need to contact ourselves if you wish for that expense to be reimbursable under the fund. So what are the things that are outside of those expenses? So there's the scans that you might be referred on to, be that your MRI. I know MRAs are very common. So MRA is just a divergence of, it's an MRI with an injection. So MRIs are covered up to a maximum of €295. So they must be prior approved. Private X-rays. So private X-rays are any ones that aren't happening in a public hospital. So if you get a referral up to Santry, or if you get a referral to the Beacon for an X-ray, that is private treatment and must be prior approved. Consultations. So that's a consultation with any private consultant. I know Santry is obviously the main one I know a lot of people go to, but there's plenty of others. So there's UPMC, there's the Beacon, any of those other Hermitage, the private clinics. The follow-up then, should you have to go to VHI, the Swift Care clinics or the Express Care clinics. Surgery is a private, obviously requires prior approval. And then any physiotherapy sessions beyond the 6 sessions covered without prior approval required.
Amy, sorry, Amy, there's just one question there, just applicable to that slide. I know there's a few people have sent in questions, but I'll hold some of them to the end for you. But just one that was applicable to that last slide. What if the scan is done at the initial A&E visit?
So if you're in A&E, you're in the public system, so you shouldn't be charged for that scan, and that would be covered under the public system. So that wouldn't be an expense. That shouldn't be an expense to you unless you're going to. I know BHI Swift Care, they do X-rays on the spot at their first initial assessments. So that's all only covered under the initial €100 expense. But most of the time, if you're in a hospital, in a public hospital, and they're sending you for an X-ray or an MRI, that's covered under your A&E expense. So, I'm just seeing, just while I have your question and answers open, I'll just go through a couple of these so we can get rid of them. So, was an official training session. An official training session is where where your coaches and your teammates are all gathered together in a group to participate in a training session. It's not individual runs. I know there's a question up there about online training. Online training isn't covered under the fund because there's no way to, the supervision isn't there for us to make sure that it's being done properly, unfortunately, so we can't, it's just not covered under the fund at the moment. No, anybody abroad is definitely not covered under the fund. Same as with the online sessions. You as if you're a trainer, you have no way of knowing exactly what their situation is and how they're participating in they're doing their training session. So it's not covered under the fund, I'm afraid. So that's those 3 done. So we'll just get back to this. So prior approval. So we've just gone through what is covered under, what requires prior approval. So I suppose the next stage is how do we do it? So in order to request prior approval, you have to submit a referral letter from a GP or a consultant if you're seeing one, but it must be on headed paper. Now, at the moment, that is being emailed into me. As I said with the notification, obviously, posts can be a bit hit and miss at the moment. So any prior approval requests can be emailed into me. So it's a referral letter from your medical doctor and a request from yourself as the player or as the claimant to have that expense considered under the fund. So if you have private health insurance and you are getting the private treatment and it's being covered by your private health insurance, but there is an excess, you need to make sure you let me know to get that prior approval for the excess, or else the excess won't be covered under the fund. So prior approval relates directly to the treatment, not necessarily the amount of money or whatever. I know that can be a bit confusing, but it is the treatment. So the treatment must be prior approved. And now that I've opened question and answers, it's going to take a moment to realize what I'm doing. There you go. So what's not covered, or what won't we be given reimbursements for at the end of a claim? So private treatments which haven't been prior approved cannot be reimbursed after the fact, and cannot be approved after the fact. It's prior approval to ensure that the finances are there to make sure that you guys have a fund going forward, and to make sure that the money is actually there to reimburse you, and that the money is going to be there for people who have followed the correct procedure. The finances are there to reimburse them as well. So injections aren't covered under the fund, prescriptions aren't covered under the fund, and once a claim reaches the maximum benefit, which is the €5,500 for medical expenses or the €3,000 for dental expenses, once a claim exceeds that amount, Anything beyond that won't be reimbursed either. Where possible, I will aim to return your receipts if it's a case that you've submitted your surgery receipt, which is prior approved, and it exceeds the balance. I'll return your other original receipts should you wish to submit them to revenue under the Med2 form or under any other form for reimbursement. So the last stage then, I suppose, is where you've had all your treatment, you're finished, and you're ready now to get the money back, so you can start not having to worry about it anymore. So the last stage of the fund is to submit your injury claim form with all of your receipts or all of your paperwork for your loss of wages. So this should only be done once all of your treatment is completed. So everything should be finished. On occasion where somebody has gone for a surgery in particular and the surgery is going to exceed the maximum benefit on its own, I would always suggest that your physio and all that to be finished, you just submit your surgery receipt and get your claim closed. Once I issue a payment, I close it, the claim is then closed. So it's only at the end of a claim that the full injury claim form and all original receipts should be submitted. So this last stage must be done by post so that the original signatures, and the original form are on file in order for me to issue payment. In order to issue payment, I issue a check either directly to the claimant or to their parent or guardian should the claimant be a juvenile. So the one thing a lot of people get confused about or ends up with queries on is the loss of wages. So in order to submit a loss of wages claim, your full injury claim form, including Section C, must be completed. So that Section C has to be fully completed by your employer and stamped. If it's a situation where they don't have a stamp, or at the moment I know a lot of people are out of the office and they don't have access to their stamps as they usually would have, it must be a headed paper letter confirming the details that are requested in the form. As well as that, 4 pay slips have to be submitted and a medical certificate confirming the entire time that you were unfit to work and the date that you were fit to return to work from your doctor must be submitted. So that does cause a bit of confusion. We tend to see a lot of medical certificates that are forward dated. So if I got injured on Monday the 1st and I ended up being off for 2 weeks until say Monday the 14th, a lot of people will submit a medical cert from Monday the 1st saying that my doctor was expecting me to be off for the full 2 weeks. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the letter at the end on the Monday the 14th saying, no, she was off, she was completely unfit to work for this entire period. So I hope that makes sense. If anybody is submitting a loss of wages claim, feel free to drop me an email before you're submitting it to get anything clarified. There's no issue there. So then, once I receive your injury claim form and I receive your original medical receipts, I'll check that against the file that we have for you, for your claim file, just confirming all of your prior approvals where necessary. At the moment now, I know my predecessor would have done a lot of things in paper, and paper files would have been the way of the world prior to the pandemic. I suppose a lot of people are finding that. So in some cases there may be slight delays because obviously I'm not in the office all the time. So I have to wait a couple of days till I get your paper file. But once I have it, that's all I'm doing. I'm just checking your anything that was prior approved before my time is on your file, and then I'm checking all your receipts. And then once that's done, if there is any questions or any queries are raised, I will always email you straight away to say, I've received your documentations, this is what I've received, and this is what just needs to be clarified. Once the check is drafted and is issued in the post, that claim is then closed. So if you have physio sessions and you're waiting maybe 2 weeks between physio sessions, I'd ask you just to hold on until all of your treatment is completed before submitting your injury claim form. Nice. So just a few final reminders. So the injury fund isn't insurance, as I discussed in the earlier part of the slides. There is no underwriter, unfortunately, doing all the claims assessing for me. It's just me doing all the claims assessing. So it's not insurance, and the money is only what we're getting in is what is going out. So notifications must be made within 8 weeks. So at the moment, there's absolutely no excuse for it to be delayed. It's been accepted by email. If you're having issues getting signatures, contact me, let me know, contact your club by email or contact your county board. We're all here to help with anyone who gets an injury. Obviously, it's a stressful time. and we just want to help you make sure that you get what the benefits are under the fund. Where you have private treatment, please make sure you get prior approval. So please make sure that you're emailing, whatever referral letter you're emailing states exactly what treatment you're going for. A few people would email in those the requests for payment from the finance department in Santry, which doesn't actually tell me what you're getting done, unfortunately. It just tells me how much they're looking for you to pay. So just make sure it says exactly what treatment you're going for. When in doubt, ask. Always, at any stage, if you have an issue with a claim, or if you have an issue, you're not too sure whether your treatment requires prior approval, drop me an email, give me a shout on, my landline is on the website, leave me a message, I'll get back to you. But just make sure you ask, to make sure, don't find yourself in doubt, just ask. Where treatment isn't prior approved and where a claim isn't notified on time, they will be declined and they cannot be reimbursed after the fact, unfortunately. So it's really important that you ask where you're querying. The website is completely updated for clarification purposes and has all my contact details on there. So feel free to get in contact with me at any stage, and I'll try and help as much as I can. So that's pretty much everything now. So if we have any questions,